First of all, I welcome you all in the CEC online lectures. As you all people know that coronavirus situation, the kind of crisis, it is prevailing all over the world. But since taking concern for you people as a stakeholders, CEC is taking lot of pain for you people because they have organized various resource persons who would be making the recording, sitting at their home, the lectures related to your subject, and you people will not be having any kind of problem. You people can sitting at home, you can listen to our lectures and you can understand all the basics very properly. So in that way CEC unit has taken a lot of care for you people. Now today I am Shalini Singh. I am a professor in the Department of Psychology, Maharishi Dayanand University, Rohtak, would be deliberating upon the topic that is nature of psychology and schools of psychology. My dear students, first thing I must tell you that psychology is a very popular subject, not only amongst the students, rather amongst the entire segment of the population. Maybe it is a child age group, or maybe it is an adolescent age group, or maybe an adult age group, or amongst the elderly people. Psychology is that subject which is really very fascinating the entire population of this world. Now, first thing you people have to be well aware about is that is what is psychology. The term psychology, it is derived from the two Greek words, that is psyche and logos. Psyche means soul and logos means discursive knowledge. Now when we say that psychology is a study of soul, it looks good, but if we talk about its further development, in starting psychology was a part of philosophy. Philosophers and psychologists, they were working together, but after a certain time period psychology became a separate entity. Now when the definition of psychology was made, they had stated that psychology is a study of soul, but there was a group of psychologists who did not agree to this viewpoint. Why? Because they had a viewpoint that soul means spirit. It is something very subjective. Can you see the soul of somebody? No, it is not possible. Why? Because it is not a concrete concept, it is a very abstract concept. Now I just make you people more clear with an example. You people say that my soul doesn't permit me to do something wrong. And there are many people who do many bad acts. Is their soul, can we see their soul, or is their soul not visible to us? Yes, it might not be visible to us, but internally they might be feeling that is another issue. So soul is something very subjective and we cannot see the soul. Then another group of thinkers who talked about the nature of psychology, they stated that psychology is a study of mind. The term mind in Hindi means man. Now they stated that when we talk about psychology as a mind, majority of people, they don't agree to it because mind deals with the mental processes. It is different from brain. Can we say that anything, whatever we talk about, anything, whatever we do think, it is only on the basis of the mind, not on the basis of the brain? For example, a person is a diabetic, right? And he passes through some sweet shop and he has a craving to have laddu or any kind of rasmalai. Now he feels that since his glucose level gets very high, it shoots up very high while he takes a sweets, his mind says that he should have it, but at the very same time the brain gives him instruction not to have it. Why? Because the moment he will be having it, what would happen? He might collapse. So they stated that psychology is not only a study of mind, it is a study of brain also. Because in the school time also, when you were in 10th or 12th class, teachers used to give us a concrete structure of brain, that is having forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. So that is something concrete, but mind is something very abstract. Then there was another group of philosophers, rather thinkers, who had stated that psychology is a study of consciousness. Now when they talked about the consciousness, they stated that psychology is not only dealing with the conscious processes, whatever is existing at present, that is only dealt by psychology. No, that group, another group of psychologists who were against this view, they said that it is not like that. Psychology deals with some of our subconscious processes, it deals with some of our unconscious processes, it does not only deal with the conscious processes. For example, I just simply tell you that, for example, in the morning you had a very nice dream that when you would be going to your college or department, you will be meeting a very sweet person who will be giving you a grand gift. You're very happy. The whole day you're very happy because you're searching for a person who would be giving you a gift. After attending to my lecture, you had a belief that when ma'am's lecture would be over, I'm going to meet that person regarding whom I had dreamt of early morning. Now, at conscious level, you are attending my lectures. You are attending to me, what I am saying. But at the backside of your mind, that particular thought is taking place. So it means that psychology is not only dealing with your conscious processes, it deals with your subconscious processes also, as well as deals with the unconscious processes also. Then there was a final group of thinkers who came with a certain acceptable definition of psychology, that psychology is a study of behavior. Now, what is behavior? Manifestation of any kind of activity, any kind of gesture, maybe a non-verbal gesture or maybe a verbal gesture, it is a behavior. For example, you are talking to somebody, but you are giving a very negative non-verbal cues. Your gestures are very poor. You are showing as if you are not taking interest in her words. You are not interested much in talking to her, or you simply give an eye expression which gives a message to the person that the person doesn't want to talk to you. So it means that psychology is the one which talks about the behavior, which studies your behavior. The another issue that comes is what kind of a behavior? Is it a only explicit behavior which you are observing, which we observe, or it is an implicit behavior what is taking place in us that is there. Now when we say that psychology is a study of behavior, it encompasses both the aspects, your covert behavior as well as your overt behavior, right? Now then another issue that was taken into consideration pertaining to definition of psychology or the nature of psychology was that when we say that psychology is a study of behavior, whether it is a psychology is a science of behavior, and then how does it is a science? Is it a natural science, the basic sciences, the way the physics, the chemistry, the bio is, or it is an applied sciences? There this stated that psychology is also science. Why? Because it also talks about the study of the facts. Now what is science? Science which deals with the study of facts. And when we have a study of facts, it becomes scientific in nature. So psychology is a positive science of behavior. One view was that. Somebody stated that psychology is a negative science of behavior. It was one aspect. Positive science of behavior means that in negative science of behavior, first I will be telling you, they were saying that somebody might be having a neurotic anxiety, somebody talks about the depression, somebody talks about the melancholy. Then who can tackle that neurotic anxiety? Who can tackle that kind of grave problems if the person is going through the melancholy? Nowadays you must have seen that sitting at home, some people have become unemployed, some people are not getting able to go out, they have been totally restricted in the four walls of their house. Like you people, students are also feeling little irritable also by all the time sitting at home because of the social distancing you want to maintain. So at that time it is a psychology is what? Psychology is there. Psychology deals with your negative aspects also. At the very same time, positive psychology is there which talks about the positive aspect. You talk about the happiness, you talk about the hope, you talk about the optimism. Hope sustains life. We are very much sure that after 15 or 20 days the situation would be very normal. Now it is written in Bhagavad Gita also, once bad time comes, after certain time that bad time also passes away. So we need not to have that viewpoint that all the time the situation would be prevailing. It is what? It is a kind of a psychology. Psychology deals with your positive aspects, it deals with your negative aspects. So then they ultimately concluded that psychology is a science of behavior. Now we will be talking further about the various schools of psychology. There have been various group of thinkers who had divided psychology into various schools. They had developed various domains where they had done lot of researches emphasizing on different perspectives pertaining to that school. They had different objectives, they had different ideology, they have different methodology to deal with the aspects of behavior. Now we will be talking about the schools of psychology. Now, what is the school? How did it emerge? The school was developed on the basis of the number of thinkers who had the same kind of ideology related to that particular thought. So when these thoughts were clubbed together, there was a one person who came as a pioneer, and with the as his contemporaries, there were so many people who were working in that particular ideology, and that emerged as one school. The first school that emerged as in the domain of the psychology, that was of a psychoanalysis. The propounder of this school was Sigmund Freud and Jung. Sigmund Freud was of view, he was basically from Vienna, and he was a physiologist, and he had basically talked about that psychology in psychology, the major impact is of the unconsciousness, right? He had stated that the unconscious processes play a vital role in the determination of our behavior, and he had a view that the childhood experiences, whether positive or something bad experiences, it has its greater impact upon the further personality development of an individual. And the kind of methodology and the kind of approach he had used, that was an individual case study. He used to take up the problem of the person, and the person had a very serious problem, so he used to go for an extensive study of the individual, and his approach, his method which he had used, that was a case study method. Another school which emerged, that was a functionalism. This school was evolved, the pioneer figure in this school was James Dewey, and he had talked about the concept of adaptation. He had stated that the person who adapts himself according to the societal norms, he is being stated that he is an adjusted person. He had talked about, he had somehow taken the help of the survival of fittest principles also, that how do we adapt ourselves in relation to any kind of environment. That was a major crux or the major theory or proposition of this particular school. And the kind of approach he had taken about in order to study the aspect was, he had talked about the experimental method and introspection method, how you need to know yourself. The third school that developed in the area of psychology, that was of a structuralism. That structuralism dealt with the scientific approach, that we exhibit behavior, and how can we study that behavior scientifically, what are the elements of thought in relation to that. That was dealt by William Wundt. William Wundt was the one who is considered as a pioneer in establishing the experimental lab in Leipzig in Germany, and after that, psychology turned out to be highly scientific in nature. And the method which is being used by this school of structuralism, that was introspection, that was to know oneself. And the fourth school that emerged after that was Gestalt school of psychology, that dealt with that was the pioneer figures in this area. They were Kohler, Kafka were the one, and the major was Wertheimer. Now they had stated that we need to perceive anything as a whole instead of going for a molecular approach. They stated when we observe something as a whole, it has something very different meaning as compared to when we are minutely observing something in the small bits. They had given a very popular example also. For example, if we look at somebody's face, we say the person is good looking, the person is fine, above average, but when you start scrutinizing that individual, molecular analysis, start doing the ears, lips, chin, cheeks and forehead, so then it might be possible the person who was getting a rating of around 80 to 90%, the person comes out to be 60%. So they had stated that the more meaningful approach is always when we perceive anything as a whole in a totality. And Wertheimer, Kohler, Kafka had done a lot of experiment in the area of insight also, and they had done experiments on chimpanzees, and their approach which they had used was a experimental perception approach they had been using. After that, before the development of this Gestalt psychology as a school, there was one school which became very popular, that was a behaviorism. As I told you, that the ultimate definition of psychology as a layman is also that psychology is the study of behavior. So the concept of behavior turned out to be very popular, and there were thinkers who had worked on this ideology, and they stated that what we observe, what is observable, that is something very important. What we had observed, that carries a meaning. And this behaviorism school was developed wholly solely, no doubt with the more collaboration of other psychologists also, but it was basically the pioneering figure in this area was Watson. And along with that, Thorndike also worked a lot. And for Watson, there's an example which is also very popular. The Watson psychologist, behaviorist, he stated that the environment plays a very vital role in the grooming of a person, or in changing the personality of a person. Because earlier it is a general view that overall our personality is determined. Earlier they had a view that it is only because of the genetic factors, but behaviorism school or behaviorists, they were the one who had stated that no, it is an environment which plays a crucial role in the personality and development of the child. And in his context, the very lively example and the very popular example is that he stated that give me a small baby, give me an infant, if that infant has the genes of a scientist, I challenge you, I can make him a dacoit, and a dacoit's offspring can be changed as a scientist if a certain kind of environment is being given. So he said that it is not only the heredity which plays a vital role, but it is more and more of the role of environment which plays a vital role and which plays a specific role in nourishing or in grooming the personality of the child. And this particular school really got a lot of importance, not only in the area of psychology, even in the area of the other psychology, in the area of not only psychology but other fields of psychology, like in organizational psychology, industry psychology also. This behavioristic approach is very, very popular and is being highly used in the corporate world also. Another school of psychology after that, these are the basic schools of psychology. After that, another school of psychology that really came into vogue, that was a humanistic psychology. Humanistic psychology was basically propounded by Rogers. Rogers was the one who had talked about the self. Self means what? Me, right? I and me. He had talked about that. He stated that every person is automata, every person has got a potential, every person has got an ability. Now, how do you utilize your ability? It depends upon the person. My dear students, before I discuss the humanistic perspective, let me tell you a small issue that took place in the area of psychology, which is very important. That is, that deals with the issue mind versus body problem. Mind versus body problem talks about that it is our mental processes which govern our behavior, it is our thought processes which govern our behavior. But another group of thinkers, they say no, it is our body that governs our behavior. So there was a lot of debate over this issue, whether mind is playing more role or body is playing an important role. So then, while resolving this conflict, there was an issue that, for example, you are not feeling well, your body is not permitting you go to a party, but your mind says that you want to go to a party. Now, how much are you going to enjoy? You won't be able to enjoy. Or for example, you have a high fever and tomorrow you have an exam, maybe under pressure, maybe under that stress of your exam, you might be able to sit and concentrate, but at the very same time your body is not permitting you to have so much of concentration if you would have been well the day before. I hope you are getting my point. What I am to say that is that it might be possible that when you are well, you are able to concentrate bodily also, and you will able to get giving the concentration mentally also. So in that context, they have stated that mind versus body, it's not, they are not different entities, they have their own importance, they have their own significance. How come they have their own insignificance? Mind and body, they do interact. There was one group, they said they go parallel to each other, right? Like the way the railway lines go, they go parallel to each other. But another one stated no, they do interact also. There is an interaction between the mind and body, and this interaction between mind and body takes place in pineal gland. at the very same time, the another issue that came into picture after this mind versus body problem, and it gained, which gained lot of popularity, that was the free will versus determinism. Now, determinism was basically discussed by Sigmund Freud, who had stated that your present or your future is governed by your past events. What you have done in the past, it would be regulating your future as well as the present. But the free will viewers, they had a very different perspective, and that was basically made to the heights by Carl Rogers, regarding whom I had talked about. He talked about the self. He stated that we all people have got some or the other kind of ability. Somebody has got a sports aptitude, somebody has got a musical aptitude, somebody has got an academic aptitude, somebody has got the dancing aptitude. Every person in this world has some kind of ability to grow. We all people have a positive feelings, we all people are free, and we all people have certain kind of potential to grow within our own selves as well as to make the world beautiful. So he was of the view that we have a free will. We are not only governed by everybody that we have to go to this direction or that direction. He stated that we have a free will either to go to the positive direction or to the negative direction, depending upon where our potential would be giving us a direction to grow. Right now, for example, I just give you a very simple example that sometimes your parents or our parents force that a child should definitely go become a doctor, but the child doesn't have an interest, the child doesn't have that scientific aptitude. So in that context, the child is free to opt or go for any kind of option where he feels that he would be able to grow his potential, and as a result of that thing, he will be able to prove his ability. So this was that thought which had talked about that we all people have a positive feelings to grow, and we have the ability to grow in one or the other field. And along with the Rogers, there was one psychologist, humanist psychology, whose name was Maslow. He had talked about the need hierarchy theory also. He had talked about this ladder theory, that first our physiological needs are to be satisfied. Once our physiological needs are satisfied, and then ultimately we will go for the gratification of other needs. They had dealt with an approach that was basically focusing upon the interview technique. Another school of thought after that, this humanistic perspective which had developed, that school of thought was dealing with the cognitive psychology. This cognitive school that was basically came into the vogue by the contribution of Sternberg. They had conducted experiments on the memory, information processing, and then Piaget and Bandura, they were also there. Bandura, who talked about the modeling, he stated that what we observe from others, we follow that. Now, for example, the child observes his parents' behavior. That is a kind of observational learning. He observes, he takes them as a role model. According to that, he behaves. And they had stated that Sternberg, they had also talked about that our psychological processes are highly regulated by our information processing approach, our thinking processing approach, and for that they had conducted very extensive experiments in the area of memory, thinking, problem solving. And the last school which came into the existence, that was an existential psychology. Existential psychology was given by Rollo and Frankl. They had talked about that every individual has an ability to create their own existence in the society. It is not like that we are the one it does not mean that only the parents are the one who can make their children to have their entity. No, it is our ability to show our existence, to have our own existence, and with this certain kind of approach we can prove our potential. And in that context also, they had taken the help of the case study and interview technique. This was about the goals of psychology. I am sure, my dear students, this lecture would be making you people to understand the basic nature of psychology. Now further we will be talking about the nature of, after the nature of psychology, we will be talking about the goals of psychology.